Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? NFL draft has come and gone. Mickey Loomis was excited about the draft. Saints made 9 picks, as we talked about. And look, they covered a lot of ground. One thing that they didn't do is trade. For the first time since 2015, the New Orleans Saints did not trade, execute a draft day trade. And it's the first time since 2015 also that they made all 9 picks. This was Gumsmack and Mick on their decision not to trade during the draft.
Look, there was a lot of discussions. At times we had things that I thought we were going to do, go in both directions, believe it or not. But, either the player that the team, we thought we were going to make a deal with wasn't there for them, or, we decided that, we had a better opportunity to stay where we were. So there were some deals on the table that we talked about. I felt like in general there were fewer deals this year than most. I know for us there were fewer calls, and so it'll be interesting to see when it all gets added up how many deals were done. But it just felt like there was fewer than normal.
One of the things that we always say when talking about draft trades, because I'll get this a lot. I was actually having a conversation this morning with a friend about the draft and what they. Well, actually, forgive me. It was Jim Derry over at NOLA.com, and I was on Jim's podcast with him, and he was making the comment about how his preference would have been for New Orleans to trade back and maybe look for Tyler Shough in round 3 or something like that. And the point that I made is actually the one that Mickey Loomis made just there is, like, you don't get to just trade back. You don't just get to forfeit your pick and move back and accumulate someone else's picks. You have to have a trade partner. You have to have someone willing to do a deal. If you want to move back, you have to have someone who's willing to move up. And not every team is willing to move up, or not. There's not always for every pick a team willing to move up to take your pick. So if you're sitting there at 40 and nobody is willing to take your pick and give you an asset to move back, well, you got to make a pick. So you decide what to do. And the Saints went Tyler Shough right there at 40 and picked a quarterback. And that's going to be the one I think that really defines this draft for a lot of obvious reasons. I mean, it's the highest the Saints have drafted a quarterback since Archie Manning in 1971. And because of everything going on, the uncertainty with Derek Carr, this is now the 3rd consecutive year you've drafted a quarterback. But again, the first time ever you've taken a quarterback in round 2, and the highest you've taken a quarterback since Archie in 1971. We're talking 50 years. You haven't taken a quarterback this high in 50 years. Naturally, this is going to define the draft. And that's something, Mickey Loomis was asked about that whole concept of this being the first time. It's the first time in his tenure as the GM that they've drafted a quarterback in the top 2 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of the process, every year. And there have been times where we've I don't want to say targeted, that's not the right word, but we talked about taking a quarterback, even in the first round, and it just didn't fall right for us. So some of that's, just circumstances as opposed to desire, I guess is the right way to say it. But yeah, we love Tyler. That through the evaluation process, we really liked him, and he was available when we were picking, and so pulled the trigger on that.
Hard to believe, but I actually agree with Mickey Loomis there. I mean, they were going to select Patrick Mahomes with the 11th pick in 2017. That was the pick they were going to make, and Kansas City jumped ahead of them. So it's not to say that they never would. They just haven't, and sometimes it is circumstance. But I think also sometimes you have to make your circumstance if you have urgency. And I think this year, the reason they took Tyler Shough at 40 was urgency. Because there's a very real question about if Derek Carr is going to be available this year. And I don't think anyone feels comfortable going into the season with Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener. So you had to give yourself another option. And so they did with a player that they really liked in Tyler Shough. So as you look at it, the Saints made 9 picks. The biggest surprise for me was wasn't necessarily a player that they took. It was that they didn't take a wide receiver. We've talked about it a bit. When you look up and down the Saints roster at receiver, when you look at Shaheed and Olave and Cooks and Tipton, you look at a bunch of dudes that are between 5'10 and 6 foot tall. That's your receiver room. So I really thought they were going to address that with a big-bodied pass catcher, and they just didn't. They took a tight end out of UCLA in round 7, but that doesn't help you. So there's got to be more there this offseason, be it veteran free agency or trade or however it may work, because they can't be content with this receiver group. But that's something else Loomis did talk about, was in this draft not taking a wide receiver.
Going into the draft, we probably would. There were some receivers that we really liked and we hoped that we'd have the opportunity to get, and it just didn't work out. So I think that's probably the one position that going into the draft you'd like to have. But when you follow your board and you take the value presented to you, and it just never really presented to us at receiver. I think there was a couple times when we thought we were going to get a receiver at a particular slot, and that guy got taken a few picks in front of us, so it just didn't work out.
There's a lot of feedback coming on the Saints draft. I can give you mine. Everybody can give you their feedback. But we did a little bit of a draft roundup. Field Yates actually listed his favorite pick of every round. Rounds 1 through 7, what was his favorite pick in round 1, favorite pick in round 2, so on. Actually, one of his favorite picks was Devin Neal in round 6, the Saints running back out of Kansas, a guy we talked about. He went in round 6, number 184 overall. This is a guy who had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons at Kansas. He set the school rushing touchdown record with 49. The knock on him is the size, and he's 5'11", and then the speed or lack thereof. He ran a 4.58 in the 40, so just under 4.6. So the lack of breakaway speed is going to hurt you whenever you're looking at things like relative athletic score. And you have a very deep running back class as well. It wasn't just at the top with Genty, but when you look at guys like Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, you had a Dylan Sampson. You had a very deep running back class. I even think about a guy like Jarquez Hunter, who was so good during his career at Auburn, who was a sort of an afterthought at running back in this draft. So there you in round 6 have a guy in Devin Neal who is sitting there for you, and hopefully he can maybe take a little bit of the pressure off of what appears to be a whiff on Kendre Miller over a couple of years, a guy who hasn't contributed for you in 2 seasons. So maybe Devin Neal can be that guy that steps in and is the 1-2 punch with Alvin Kamara. But that's one that a lot of scouts liked, was Neal to the Saints in round 6. Tons of value there. For what it's worth on the draft grade roundup, Mel Kiper gave the Saints a B-. Pete Prisco and Chris Trapasso of CBS gave the Saints a C. Yahoo Sports graded the Saints a B-, as did Chad Reuter of NFL.com. Pro Football Focus a C+. Rob Rang at Fox, a B. Nate Davis at USA Today, a B. Luke Easterling at Athlon, a B-. Rob Matty at AP, a C+. So nary an A. The highest grade was a B, but you do see some C's and B- in there, but no D's. So the general consensus is you didn't do great, you didn't do terrible, you were just kind of in the middle, which is actually a pretty accurate way to gauge what this organization has been for the last half decade, sans Drew Brees. I don't know that I believe I'm excited very much about this team or this season at all. What I will say is an area where I've been clear is the path to fixing this is getting younger and more affordable. Well, how do you do that? You draft 9 players. I don't know that all 9 are going to make the team. It's unlikely that they do. But can you get 5 starters out of this draft? Can you get 5 starters on rookie contracts out of this draft? If you do, I think we'll turn back in hindsight and say that was a good draft and a pivotal turning point for this organization. You got to figure out quarterback, obviously, and you got to hit on Kellen Moore as a head coach. But you got to get your roster and your salary cap in order. The best way to do that is get younger and more affordable, and you do that through the draft. So time will tell, but an average of a B, solid B, C+ average is what a lot of scouts and NFL draft prognosticators seem to think about what the Saints did over their 3 days there in Green Bay. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.